explain why you have arrived on these premises.
I've now ascended to first of the faces because I'm an editor at Gamasutra.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are joined today by two way more interesting faces. Two very special guests are with us today from Poland. A very special guest. Could you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
I'm Karolina. I'm quest designer on 7 The Days Long Gone, and this is Jakub, the project lead.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks so much for joining us. I know it's late over there, so I appreciate it.
Great for you having us.
Yeah, could you really quick? I could try and explain 7 The Days Long Gone. It seems like I could call it a techno magic stealth RPG, but would you like to do a better job introducing it?
Whew, you pretty much covered it. It's an action RPG with it's an open world action RPG with stealth elements, but in our focus we wanted to give the player the biggest freedom that he can imagine. So like the stealth elements are there because you're a thief by profession, but we don't really want it to force the player to play stealthy. So if you find your playstyle to be different, then you still can do it.
If you want to cause a mayhem and like kill everyone in range, then you can easily do it. Yeah. We also have magic, so you can also kill them with fire and spells and so on.
Yeah.
So play your way.
That's important.
Alex, I'm gonna jump in with my first question. I'm gonna be honest. This game kind of snuck up on me. The wonderful folks like Jim Redner and company shot me an email, and I was like, "Oh, what is this game? It looks very cool." Could you explain how this game's development got started and what made you all want to make a game with this kind of techno magical setting?
The techno magical setting was just something I was really interested in, and when we started planning out 7, we didn't really saw much of products cover that area. Everything was either post-apocalyptic or fantasy, or sometimes heavy hard sci-fi. So I've read a lot of Scott Lynch's books and Mark Lawrence's books, which all are kind of post-apocalyptic, but way in the future. They have technical elements, but they have also like magical elements. I was always under a great impression of the words that any technology advanced enough can seem like a magic to an unknowing mind, you know. So this was the key element that came to my mind when I was trying to design the world of 7. Regarding the whole idea about 7, what 7 is and why we designed it this way, we always wanted to experiment a little bit within the genre, hence the jumping and rotating camera and the parkour styling and all the other stuff. But a big inspiration for us were the old RPG games like Fallout, where you weren't really held by the hand, like they say. You just had to like figure it out yourself. So we tried to build that approach into 7. So you have some hints here and there, bits and pieces provided by other NPCs and Artanak on what you should and supposed to do in your mission. But we don't really force you to do any of that. You can do it your own way, or just ignore it. Your everything, ignore in the mission and just do it however you like it.
Well, especially the side activities. So
exactly, yeah.
There is like the main path, and it's, let's say, it was more obvious how to complete it. And there are the side activities, and some of them are really like small but hidden, so you need to read everything and look around to find a solution and so on.
Little secret that I don't think anyone noticed yet, there are some non-linearities in our main story. I think 2 of them. One of them gives you a rather large boost in doing a speed run. Basically you can skip around 2 hours of content if you want, but it's logical in the main story. And the other gives you a little bit different ending. I mean, part of the ending, I guess.
One of the boss fights.
Yeah, one of the boss fights is a little bit different. People have yet still to discover it from what I saw from the achievements. Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. We always try to put like little bits and of something extra and some other different approach into our quests.
So look everywhere.
I will.
No pressure,
do my
Brian.
best. Alex,
Yeah.
you seemed like you had a question there.
Oh, I mean, I just we saw this game get a bit of press attention, I think, late last year, and but other than that, it's sort of been off the radar, and now it's basically here. And since I have you here, I would love to know, like, how did this happen for you? I understand you're ex-Witcher developers. How did you make the decision to go out on your own and make a game like this, and what challenges did you face in doing that?
Well, it started like we basically wanted to make something on our own because we actually grew with this idea for some time, and we were ready to move on. That's it.
Well, the full CRE and IMGN Pro dev teams we're all basically, most of us, we knew each other before the development of 7 happened, and we were good friends, and always saying that we need to do a game together at some point in our lives. And when Witcher 3 came to an end and me and Karolina wanted to move out of Warsaw, somehow like all the elements clicked in the right way. You know, the guys from IMGN finished Kolat, and we were just about to finish Witcher 3, and I had this idea in my head, and I had my friends with me who were backing me up in the idea and trying to do a prototype with us. So it somehow, like, the universe, you know, helped us a little bit to make the timetable bearable so we can all meet in one place and do this game.
Yeah. This is maybe just a tangent, but I'm just curious, why did you want to leave Warsaw? Something about the city or the environment, or?
We really weren't. I mean, we weren't from there. We're not native to Warsaw, but we always wanted to go to a smaller town to live in a little bit more laid back environment, you know.
Yeah.
Closer to the nature as well.
Closer to the nature, yeah. We came back to my hometown where all the guys from IMGN come from. Well, basically most of us. And it's a really laid back town in Polish mountains. I would show them to you, but it's dark because it's middle of winter.
Yeah, so. Fair. I know Brian and I both live in the outskirts of LA and San Francisco respectively, and so I can't speak for him, but I definitely sometimes think, like, it'd be nice to just be somewhere where it's quiet and it's not surrounded by streets and cars. But let's talk about this project that took you away from CD Projekt and from Warsaw. It seems ambitious for a small team to jump right into games with a sort of traditional, like isometric-esque, like CRPG, basically. Like, this seems like a lot to tackle. Although obviously your experience at CD Projekt Red directly informs your work on this, I'm sure. Like, why did this particular project seem like such a good idea for you your first time out?
Well,
go ahead.
If you think about it from like the practical side, on the other hand, because ideas here and what you can do is here. So first of all, we have a small team. So first person is like really out of our reach for now, for such a small team. And on the other hand, we still wanted to make something innovative. So like isometric RPG or isometric game itself seems like a good choice, or a good way to start, at least.
Yeah, it's a good way to start. I was thinking a lot about it, like, what should we do for our first project? And I always loved RPGs, and I always wanted to do an RPG. So what happened is I started calculating how many people you need per department, like, to do stuff on a proper, like, quality level, you know, at this point. And it turned out that I don't have that much money, and I don't know anyone who does. You know? So we could either crunch like crazy, or we could have only seniors in our team and crunch like crazy, or we gonna do something different and something in a different approach. So we decided on an isometric point of view, not only because, like, it was easier for us. It wasn't actually easier because we had all the other problems with the camera and perspective and combat, etc. But it kind of took some problems out of our way at the start. So we didn't really need any people in the cinematic department. So we didn't really have to do, like, you know, film-esque cutscenes. So they feel
and
facial
animation
and so rigging all the fingers and stuff. You know, that takes some work out of our animators and stuff. So it's definitely easier to do this kind of game in a smaller team. The other thing was that when we were doing 7, we straight away knew that we're gonna need people who are like multi-instrumentalists, so they can do anything and everything. So oftentimes it would be like one person in our team would do 3 or 4 departments at the same time, just juggling tasks.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely want to dig in deeper into what your experience was like trying to finance a project like this and the challenges you encountered. But while we're talking about stuff like animation and modeling and cameras, it's a good opportunity to jump into chat and grab a question here from Roman Lux, who wants to know what is the rule you use for how to clip away objects in terms of like where the camera rotates and how you decide which things clip away and when.
Well, basically, whole our game is like all the environments are done from modules. So there are little bricks basically that construct the whole map. And our lead programmer Łukasz Królikowski was working hard on delivering this feature, where basically he has numerous traces from the camera to the player, which gather all the objects that could get in the way. And I hope I'm not making stuff up. You can follow it up with Łukasz after this stream.
Yep.
But I think he's dynamically putting a material replacement into those objects and replacing them real time, basically.
So
I don't know if that answers your question, but this is basically a custom build system that our programmer did.
It is a really cool.
Yeah.
This what I've been struck by, and I'm a little from a player since I'm overwhelmed with it in this town right now, just in how there's so much to do in this one area. Unlike other CRPGs, like verticality here becomes not just like kind of a sloping of a 2D space, but like it exists in a very big way. Like all these 3, like right now I'm standing in the middle of 3 levels, and I can of course climb up on top of things and jump over things.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if you go left and through the energetic gate, there's like an even bigger drop that you can show. There's like cliffs over there and stuff.
Sure,
it's a good case of how we construct our map,
But you need to talk to the guy first,
Yeah,
so he
on the
allows
right,
you to go.
on the right with the question mark, and
This question
just ask
mark?
him what.
Yeah.
Just ask him what to do, and he's gonna let you through the energy gate.
Got it. I will work on that and get that cliff up. But yeah, could
Sorry,
you
I
talk
interrupted.
about making that vertical component, because I know it was something you were trying. Like every PR email I got from you all talked about how this was a vertical stealth game as well as being a fantasy one, techno fantasy.
Let's dig into that. And just to be real quick, this is running on Unreal 4, right? Unreal Engine 4. Okay, so let's talk about the challenges you faced in trying to make this like isometric RPG in Unreal 4 where the character isn't stuck to the ground, right? Like one of the most striking things we'll see it as Brian continues to play, is that he keeps climbing over things, sliding off things. That's fascinating. How did you do that?
Yeah,
and what challenges did you face?
Turn around 118. That's nothing. Over there, yeah.
Oh, there. Woo.
So you can go there everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
I'm not going to
anyhow,
right away because I need to go wrap up some stuff in town. But
the challenges that we encountered, like one of the biggest challenge was to basically how we handle nav mesh. So all those objects have edges generated on them and links and stuff like that. So it had to be generated, and then at some point where we started to do our prototypes, we discovered that there is actually a limit of those edges that you can have streamed at the same time. So we had to do a little bit tweaking to the engine. I don't know if it has this feature right now at this point, because we're on a pretty fairly old and Unreal Engine version. We're going to be upgrading soon. But we had to do a custom system which would stream, which would first cut the nav mesh into grids, and then it would stream the grids as you progress through the map. The same would go with streaming geometry. Just simple cutting the geometry like by hand on a level wasn't cutting it. Mm-hmm. So we had to design and implement a special system that would take our geometry and kind of take a snapshot of it, cut it into pieces, and then stream those pieces instead of regular geometry that you run around, right? So those were two bigger issues fairly early in the development. There was like around a year mark. Then we had started problems with AIs, like choke point on too many AIs streamed, which is kind of the situations where you can see that at most is exactly the moment where you see the big backdrop at the end, and you can see through all the levels and all the monsters and NPCs on those levels, and sometimes you get into like having 500 AIs at the same time on the screen, even though you don't see them because they're like this small, but they're still there, And if you use your sense mode, you can still look at them. So we're still optimizing this, and hopefully the patches that will arrive in the next couple of days will address the issue. So.
I haven't seen it yet, but did the AI also have the ability and like guidance to climb over things, climb up things?
Yeah, they basically chase you everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not easy to escape them now.
So what's so interesting about this is that like we said, you worked on The Witcher, which is a big 3D RPG, but you mentioned Fallout, the original Fallout, which is an isometric 2D PC game from the 90s, and this game seems to really reference and draw inspiration from a lot of RPGs that are sort of 2D and or rather isometric, and they are like flat, like they're very the player is stuck to the ground. So I would imagine when trying to design something like this, it would be very easy to get stuck in the mindset of like not thinking vertically. Like you want the player to think vertically, but I imagine as designers must have been hard to continually remind yourself that the player can go up and over things, underneath things. Was that at all a challenge? And if so, like how did you?
That was a continuous challenge for us designers, for the whole team, basically. But I just want to give a big shout out to my level designers who did an amazing job. Because firstly, we had to decide on like how we're gonna construct our modules, right? So what are the heights of the modules and that we're gonna stick? And after we made that decision, we couldn't change it for the next 2 years because that would mean like, deleting like half of the map and redoing it again. Mm-hmm. And then we had to figure it out how to give you the feeling of exactly this verticality and many levels without feeling confused, So without you feeling that you have something above you, but you cannot really see it and getting frustrated because of that, etc. So basically, like I'm saying right now that the production of 7, it was like a year and a half or 2 years of research and development, and the rest was just pure polish to make the game and ship it. It was all one big experiment, and I think we, in terms of level design, we really did well on it. I really love our map.
Yeah, it was a big experiment, obviously. What did you end up, like, what didn't work out is what I want to know. We happened to stumble across a talk you gave at Digital Dragons, I think, last year, about making this game. And early in that talk, you opened it by saying, just have clear eyes if you're making a game like this and be ready to cut as soon as something's not working. So I want to know, like, what was meant to be in this game that just didn't work out from a technical or production perspective?
So many things. We've cut so many things out of it. We wanted to have items that you could put into someone's pockets and set them off, so they would trigger different reactions. We wanted to have a little bit more granulated AR reactions, so they would be more specific. But the more we started doing those, the more confusing the game became. So we decided on having only few AI profiles, which are consistent within each other, and just tweaking those, which still have some problems as the players voice point out right now. But as I've mentioned, there's a big patch coming in, so I hope you're gonna be happy.
And we do listen.
Yeah, we do listen, exactly. There are a few huge design ideas that I had, but never made it to the game. So one of it was that Terrell was supposed to be mute, and you would communicate only with like signs to to the NPCs.
Yeah.
But taking the time frame into consideration and the fact that we had only 2 writers at hand, which was Stephen Rhodes and Thomas Kilalea, great guys. But there were only 2 of them, and it was a big game, and it was a new approach. to storytelling, and we decided at some point, like, look, okay, we cannot revolutionize every single aspect you have in this game. Just stick to the things that we know and feel confident with it. And I'm quite happy that we decided to put like our money on Teriel being the thief and having this kind of character that he has, because I think people kind of like him.
Yeah, I wonder, what advice could you give other developers about being able to cut things effectively? And I don't just mean like examples or have the courage to cut something you think is a really good idea. I mean, like, in terms of your production process as a team, how do you constantly evaluate what is critical to the game and what needs to be removed?
You just play your game constantly.
Just play it a lot? All right.
It's funny, but it's not really... I mean, it's not really that weird. I think it should be obvious for other people to play their game. But from my experience and working in a few different companies, my experience is that developers don't really play their game. Like, designers do play their game, project leads do play their game, and like project managers, etc. But most of the team doesn't, because either they are not really into it, or they want to leave it for the release,
or there is no time,
or there is simply no time. And we didn't really have time to have all the team play it all the time. But yeah, if I would want to have like a perfect environment to make a game, it would be an environment when I can have one day in a week where everybody sits down and play the game that we're developing, and just gathers feedback from his coworkers and decide what can be in the game implemented and what not. There's the saying, fail fast and follow the fun. Yeah. So this is a really good design advice that really works in those kind of projects.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a fair point, certainly. I think a dev's ability to play their own game is tied not only to their own workload and where they are in the project, but also like how big the team is, right? I think when you have a smaller team, it's perversely much like each person's time seems more valuable, but also like it seems like everyone has a much more like personal attachment to the game and touches more parts of it, and so therefore may feel more comfortable in playing through it. But that brings me to my next question, which is how big is the team? How big did you start, and then how big did you end up in terms of team size?
We didn't really grow that much, did we?
I mean, well, you started 7 with...
Okay, so I started
1.
I started 7 and Full Theory with me and 3 other mates. And then we did a demo that we pitched successfully to IMGN, to the guys who run the publishing company, and convinced them to join the forces with us and do the development together.
And now we have...
So we started with them when we joined. It was like, I think, 16 people, and right now it's 20 plus 2 writers on the outsource, and like Marcin Przybyłowicz, who is our composer, right, on the outsource as well. So it's like 23, 24 plus the office management and the publishing people. So like project manager, translation manager, publishing lead, stuff like that.
Right. I have a personal interest in the game development scene in Poland, and I think a lot of cool stuff comes out of there. And we don't, at least over here in the States, we don't get a lot of visibility into what it's like to work over there and the difference between a big budget studio and an indie studio. So I'd be curious if you can tell me, like, how did you guys fund this this venture of yours? Like, once you left full-time employment and went to start your own thing, was it out of pocket? Did you seek investment before you went to partner with IMGN.Pro, or how did you manage to pay rent while you were making this game, basically?
I don't know how much I can say, but I can definitely say that the development was funded by IMGN Pro. That was the part of the deal. And them as publishers, it was funded in part by Humble Bundle, for how you can see on the opening credits. We also found few private investors who invested the money along the way when they saw some demos and some milestones, etc. It wasn't easy, but everything is doable if you have a valuable product that you can sell.
That's good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. I thought there must be some mix of publisher funding and investment and everything else. I hadn't thought about Humble Bundle. I knew they were doing their own stuff, but that's cool that you were able to reach a deal with them. I had a thing and it went out of my brain because somebody mentioned in chat that the president of Poland, once gave Witcher as a gift to Obama.
We were actually working at that time in CD Projekt. There are our signatures on that Witcher.
That's cool.
2 days ago, I was wondering where that copy of Witcher is held. Like, is it a special nuclear bunker, something?
I mean, like hopefully it's going into the Obama presidential library, right? Like in Chicago or wherever, it's going to have its own little alcove.
I hope so.
While we're on the topic of Poland, I think we were talking before we started, but we were just chatting, and when Brian and I pointed out that we've seen a lot of like really cool, interesting games come out of Poland this year, especially. They have a certain vibe in general, like a game like Observer, a game like Ruiner, and now a game like this. There is a certain like punky techno vibe to them, I guess, that seems to be sort of lacking in games from over here in the States. And I just kind of wanted to get a sense of if you think that's on point or not, and if so, why you might think that is.
I think that's actually a coincidence that that Ruiner and Observer came out at the same time. Because at the same time we do have like a lot of fantasy games coming out in Poland as well.
But
right.
I would say that cyberpunk around themes are new sexy now.
Okay. Basically, Eastern Europe, Poland and Eastern Europe are really big on post-apocalyptic themes and cyberpunk.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why that is. I was always crazy about post-apocalypse. I guess it's because of Fallout when I was growing up, and the views that we have outside our window. But,
yeah. Well, like, let's use that as a jumping off point and dig deeper into this game. I know we talked a little bit about the themes and how it's sort of technology and magic intermixed to the point where any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. But like, let's dig into like where you got the idea for this setting and how you both what you both value about storytelling in a setting like this.
Well,
why is it cool, basically?
Well, the idea came out of when I started thinking about Drogon, the Emperor, how one can build an empire, and I just realized when I was saying this sentence that I cannot finish it because I'm gonna spoil so much.
Oh. Well, I mean, we can put up a spoiler warning. Can we talk around it just in very general terms? Like, there's a
you are introduced to who the Emperor is and how he came to power in the first few games.
Okay. So the story. The story how Emperor got how Drogon came into power. There's another side to this story, and that was like the foundation of the core of the idea that came to life. And what do I love about it? It's diversity, I guess. I love that I can have a witch who sees into the future by throwing CDs into microwave and glancing into the future from that, or that you have talking. I don't know, what do we have talking, like the thing that they exorcise on the farm.
Oh yeah, so we have plenty of like demons and
you have demons and weird spirits in our game at the same time.
Weird mysticism connected with technology, because people after apocalypse basically don't know what technology was before, so they speculate and they use common objects that we know as artifacts, or they even use it as a prophecies and so on and so on.
And you never know if you're talking to a demon or a pre-recorded message that someone recorded on his phone, and stuff like that. In this world, everything can be weird and crazy.
Also, setting like this allows you to tell, to maybe touch major schemes, major themes, actually. So you can invent everything and say almost everything and tell stories about suffering, about love, about friendship, and so on and so on. The topics that are actually really serious, right?
And that was actually one of the biggest challenges that we had as well at the beginning, creating your own IP and lore. Because I always hated working on like set IPs, because you had this huge rule book that you have to go through and, okay, this character cannot do this or that, this is not in the character, you have to stick to it, blah, blah. When you're doing your own IP and your own world, you can do whatever. but it doesn't help. It still has to be consistent, and it still has to make sense. Those characters have to have their motivations, and the world cannot be just imagined. It has to be created as the characters living in the world would create it. So a lot of work and a lot of hours talked over Skype with Tom and Steven went into this, and I think only after a year and a half we were kind of feeling it where we are at that point.
Yeah.
Nice. There's a good question in chat here from Dimegi. Sorry about that. Dimegi wants to know whether you feel like you're ever likely to open the game up for modding.
For what? Sorry.
For modding.
For modding, yeah, for modders to make their own.
Mods. Yeah, I would love to.
We don't say no. We never say no.
The problem with modding is that we first have to make the decision what do we want to mod, because there are some countries that don't allow certain mods to be implemented into your own game.
Oh yeah,
etc. Some countries who don't like modding as well.
That's fascinating. I'm not aware. Do you mean like in a formal legal sense, or just like culturally, it's not very popular in certain
No, like legal sense.
Huh? Where? If you don't mind me asking, which countries?
I cannot really talk about it because this is like an ongoing thing we have.
Okay. All right. Fair. Okay, that's interesting. I think. Did either of you ever mod? Did that influence your route into game development, or not so much?
Yeah, I did a lot. I did CryEngine modding. The first demo of UDK was done. The first demo of 7 was done on UDK. Unreal Development Kit, and that's pretty much it. I was playing around with UDK and CryEngine for a while before starting my own adventure.
Huh. Did that guide your path into game development, or did you end up just getting a job somewhere like as a totally unrelated?
I actually was working in game development at that time already, but I got frustrated that I'm shit in technical areas. Mm-hmm. I can only come up with ideas, and people look at me like I don't know my stuff. So I started learning and teaching myself like what this engine thing is all about.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess in most cases, if you're teaching yourself game dev skills and you're not in a course, you're basically a modder.
Exactly.
So in a sense, Brian, how you doing in there?
Good.
You got a lot going on in that inventory.
I'm putting on some fancy clothes that I found. So.
I like that hat.
Yeah, appearance is really important in our game. There are some disguises that you can have. And
Sir, you fancy now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please put on the hat.
Very fancy.
Yep.
I didn't get fancy trousers, but I did get fancy boots. Let's put on the fancy boots.
Huh.
There we go. I'm a fancy stealth man now. Copa.
So elegant.
I noticed that earlier. I was sneaking through the prologue and found out I could get the guard uniforms. Is there a social stealth in this game? Like, if I was wearing a guard uniform, would guards just shrug as I walked by?
Oh, they're getting suspicious if you walk too close to them.
But you can use it to, like, you can walk on the edges of their vision, and they'll.
Yeah. Well, basically, if you jump into a guard post without Technomagi armor, and people see you, they get aggro instantly because you're a trespasser and you shouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. But if you do have the armor and you jump into there, they won't get suspicious of you if you don't close the distance. Right. So you can like sneak through it.
They really need to check on you if they are they colleague or not. Actually.
Yeah. That sort of reminds me, I wanted to talk a little bit about good quest design in role-playing games because I played a lot of RPGs growing up, and I have a lot of concerns about what makes good quests and what it makes bad quests. I feel like, Karolina, maybe you probably spent a lot of time thinking about this during development. What do you think makes a really good quest in a role-playing game?
Well, for me, it would be the quest that is not unfair towards me. So if the quest gives me the opportunity to approach it differently, then it should handle it, right? So if there is a problem and I can choose my own way of solving it, then that should be it. Also, I don't really like when quest pushes me into Well, it depends on the character. If the character is defined, let's say in the game, then, for example, if you are playing with a good paladin, then you should always have quests for a good paladin and so on. But if you want to choose your own path, then it should be up to you. Actually.
I'm gonna voice something for Karolina because she always bashes me for it. But she doesn't really, I think, realizes that that's the rule she follows, is that the good quest should always inform you where to go, what to do, and how to do it. It doesn't have to be specific, like we have here, like just go to Mordbane, and you have a map in somewhere that direction. Doesn't care how you're gonna get it, but you have to know always when, why, and where. A good quest has always this stuff. And when we were implementing quests, she was always like standing above me and was like, why? Why this? So yeah, I hope we did a good job.
Okay.
It seemed... Go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to ask, let's talk about this, I'm going to drop down here and avoid this fight. Let's talk about this, like, Techno Eye feature that's been implemented here. This lets you, for those of you watching at home, I'm holding down the Q button and moving the mouse around, and it gives me an overlay of this information. Can you talk about the process of implementing that kind of feature and why you think RPGs benefit from giving players, like, special vision, if you will?
Well, the main reason why we did this was because of the perspective. Because it doesn't, the perspective is fine in looking into vistas, but it doesn't really give you a good view of the area you're about to explore and infiltrate. So in a sneaking game, that's a big handicap, basically, and you have to give the player some way to counter it. So it's the sense mode where you can pan the camera like 1.5 screens left, right, up, down, so we can have a quick look around. Also for us, it gives us the opportunity to not spam the screen with too much information on UI, because usually you would have like information about how strong the enemy is, like what the point of difficulty is, how much HP he has, etc., etc. Where here you have it on the little prompt that we just saw on the screen, and you can upgrade that prompt. Like, we don't give you a full set of information at the start. For the player who's not really interested in it, he doesn't need to upgrade it with passives. But there are some upgrades that you can implement, and they're gonna give you special abilities and like how do you say it? Insight into like NPCs' statistics, their pockets, how wealthy they are, etc. What challenge they pose.
I think that's really interesting, because when you see systems like that in games, sort of like supervision systems where the player can sort of easily hit a button or hit a toggle and look for clues or data they need to know, sometimes it can be hard to keep the player from just keeping that on all the time. I remember like in the Arkham games, like it was very common to have Batman walking around with his detective vision on like all the time, just so you would know where everything was and you could see all the enemies. Was that a challenge you faced in designing this? And if so, like how did you deal with the fact that it's so easy for players just to leave that on all the time?
That was one of the ideas we had at the beginning. Why just not give a toggle button for it, and be done with it? But then then we thought, well, it's rather pointless. At the same time, you can just leave it on, and everybody will be running around with it and have a huge disco ball around with all the containers light up and all the enemies visible and stuff like that. This is like the part of the mechanic of actually going into the sense mode and stopping for a second of you running like crazy and having a breather and looking around and thinking, okay, what now? Like, where I can go? What can I see? This is like the gamification of Teriel looking around, basically.
We tried it. We tried the approach with everything like enabled, so you could see like every viewcon of the NPC, and it was so unclear actually. So now you can see a viewcon of the character you basically click on in a sense.
You gotta watch out for that information overload. There's another question in chat I'm gonna grab real quick from DMaggie. Please apologize. I'm so sorry about messing up your name, but DMaggie asks one final question. it's about optimization. Some players with capable rigs are reporting FPS issues that seem to be tied to the CPU. This person definitely appreciates big time that you're looking into it as a priority, but can you speak more specifically about what might be causing that issue and sort of how, and I'd be curious to know, like, in the engine, like, how did you hit that bottleneck and how are you working to get around it?
Well, one thing is that we do have some problems with lighting, basically, and we have to optimize that. Basically, our meshes, we have, like, I don't know, guys were saying some crazy numbers today. We have a lot of meshes and a lot of shadows and all the other stuff. So, but this is Rokosz. So this is like part of the problem. Our optimization regarding the CPU is mainly on AIs, like the number of AIs, and the checks they're doing basically during pathfinding and during combat. We still, like, as I said, we already have some fixes in place, but we are working on more because we do have an idea what we could do to make it even better, and hopefully in few days time there's going to be a huge patch uploaded.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, if I'm not crazy, this just came out like last Friday, so it's relatively fresh, and it's cool to see that you guys have to continue to respond to the community and address feedback. I just kind of want to get a sense of where you're at as an indie team launching your first game in 2017. Like, how has that experience been? We hear a lot from developers about how challenging it can be to get your game in front of the right people. Sort of like, how has it gone for you? Have you been able to sort of get it out in front of the right people on Steam or other venues, or have you struggled to try and like break through the noise that is the game industry these days?
It's hard to say yet. It's a little bit too early. For an indie team and unknown IP, you either have to have crazy amount of money for marketing to get the visibility, so you get the sales at the first day, or you just have to do something exactly right, basically, to do a great giant bomb of sales at the day one, right? Mm-hmm. From what I see, a lot of people were thinking that 7 is something different than it is. But at the same time, a lot of people greatly appreciate it. And I love working with the community. I knew that, not everyone will be happy with the design choices we did, but at the same time, we weren't really 100% sure of them. And we knew that maybe some of them will need to be changed regarding on the answer from the community. So we're focusing on doing just that right now. Some of the mechanics haven't been gotten across clearly enough for the players, even though they are in the game, because some people don't understand them, how they work. They have too complicated rules basically implemented in them, and not enough tutorial. There's some kind of a backlash on that. So currently we're working on making the mechanics more user-friendly and visible, basically. So that's our main goal, but we were aware of it, that this might happen, and that's why we're working so hard right now to make it as fast as possible.
Yeah, you mentioned some people thought it was different than what it is. That, I think, is something I hear more often than I'd like from devs, just because it can be so tricky to very clearly, and you have to do it quickly. You have to like very quickly get someone's attention and also make it incredibly clear what you're making, or else the potential for a little bit of backlash when it comes out can be there. So I want to know, like, what did some people think this game was, and why do you think that was the case?
Well, I wouldn't really want to answer for other people, but from what I see is that, like, my main error. I mean, for me, what I see as a main error that we did. What I did basically was to not put enough energy and time into implementing tutorials. Not because I didn't want it to, just simply because we didn't really have time during development to do it, and we just thought that the players will read the tutorials and they will figure it out themselves. At the same time, we forgot about some crucial things to implement in the tutorial, like in the, how do you say it? to take the player through the tutorial mission, so he ends it with a clear vision of what this game is. Because a lot of people would buy the game, start the tutorial, and think, oh, this is not what this game is, basically, so what I wanted. Whereas when you travel to Pech, the world opens and everything becomes more, free and opened. So I guess that.
I just did something very embarrassing.
Yeah, how'd that go, Brian?
I was trying to jump up and grab the ledge and just missed. I got it once, and then first time I was like, "Oh, sweet!" I recovered, and that felt really good. And then I just, luckily, I quick saved right there, so it's all good.
It looked very acrobatic.
Getting back into the design questions, there's a lot of ways that you can freeze time in this game. You can go into menus, you can open a box, but then there's a time there's a time component where if you are like doing certain tasks, like the game will start to move again. Like here, I'll just demonstrate one thing. So the game slows down while I'm in this mode, but I can fast forward it, and as you can see, that moves the time of day forward and makes the guards cycle through their rotations. Can you talk about designing this kind of I don't think a lot of game designers deal with time in the same way you did here, and if you could talk about that process, I think they would appreciate what you learned from it.
Well, it emerged from the feature you actually shown, from the sense mode and fast forwarding time. This was one of the first things we implemented because we always hated in stealth games that you have to wait like for a minute and a half for that guard to pass you. This is something that really frustrated me, and I knew that with making a huge world, you have to have the ability to fast forward the communities, especially when they have different time schedules, etc. And then, while we started implementing and doing the challenges and quests, etc., we noticed that there are some absurd situations where you just rush into the building, run next to all the guards, get to the container you're about to steal, and then just press loot and everything pauses. And you're basically free. Like, you're free to do whatever. You can change your equipment, you can steal the thing that you came for, and there's no penalty for it. So that's not really challenging. This is not really about being a thief. Being a thief is always planning, and if the shit hits the fan, is having your eyes all around you, basically, and knowing each and every escape route that you can take. So we started experimenting with this super hot mechanic that we kind of got inspired from the game Super Hot from our Polish friends from Łódź. Because basically this is the same principle. The time moves when you move, right? So when you transfer the item from one container to the other, the time unpauses and they can notice you and come and stop you. If you move your marker in the hacking minigame, the same thing happens. Because when we did this in the containers and it started working, we realized that, okay, so if we're going to have this, then it would be good to actually propagate it throughout all the systems that pause and make you stop for a second.
Nice. We should double back to chat real quick, unless Brian, you want to dig deeper into the timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good answer.
All right. I think it's really interesting, and I kind of want to play a bit more of this game to see how it works. But Roman Lux wants to ask real quick, what was the localization process like? They want to know sort of about any obstacles you faced, and sort of whether you did it all in house or did you outsource it? Like, how did that process work?
Okay, if you want to have localization in your game, my advice would be hire a separate person for that.
Yeah.
Because I had so many crises during the process, I cannot really spell. Actually, in Unreal 4, it's pretty neat. The tools for the localization, I don't know if it went out of the experimental phase yet, but the localization dashboard on the engine version we're using is still in experimental, and it acts really well. It can give you numerous. You don't have to have like all the dialogues and all the written stuff. You don't have to keep it in one place, like in one file. You can break it up to numerous files, whatever you want, whatever you need, as many cultures as you want. And it imports and exports pretty well into PO files that are pretty much standard for localization companies. It has an integration with like localization services and with Source Engine. So from the tool side, it's really good. It's really great. From the production side,
you need a person.
You need a person to do that. Yeah, because what happens, like, it's all fun and games when you just have like written dialogues. You export it once, send it to translations, get it back, import, and that's it, done. It's not so fun when you have rewrites and you have to like translate some names back and forth because they are ridiculously inappropriate in some languages. For example, some names were really inappropriate in other languages that we had.
Oh, yeah?
They're pretty neutral in English. So yeah, you have to have this back and forth, and don't start it late. Like we locked down the locket, I think 3 months before the release.
Yeah.
And we localized the game in 3 months, which I can give a big shout out to QLock and Quantic for helping us out. There's two great localization companies that I can assure you are doing a great job.
Nice. Okay, so I have two questions about that. One, can you give us an idea of what kind of names? Like, I can't even conceive of a name that would be inappropriate. I mean, I guess I can. I know some pretty bad English words, but I just can't imagine that being a name. Can you explain without necessarily like blowing out sensitive ears, like what kind of names in this game might be considered inappropriate in other languages and why?
Oh dang, what was it? It was some games. It wasn't drugs. It was the other guy.
For now,
there's something in Czech language. Something was really offensive.
Okay. All right.
I won't give you the word, but I would have to check in my notes. But I remember getting it was 11 o'clock in the evening, and I got an email like, "Look, we need to change this because this is really bad." And it's like, all right, let's do that. Another re-export.
I guess I'm just curious about was that name when it was originally conceived, was it like a made up fun techno fantasy name, or was it just like a standard name?
It was a made up fun techno name, and
all right.
some reason in some
it turned out
languages,
badly in Czech.
It wasn't just like Christopher or something. Okay.
No.
All right, and also I get the impression that you guys, you relied on outside contractors and stuff, but it sounds like someone on the team took direct responsibility for localization. Is that the case? Do you wish you had a dedicated person rather than asking someone on the team to devote part of their time?
We did it with one other outsourcer, Magda.
Nice.
Who helped us with the communication between the outsourcers and us. But ideally you'd have just one person who would do that and make sure that every file is in correct order and everything is fine, and play it in game and see if all the translations are properly displayed and stuff like that. So we did it on our own, but it was actually easier as well because we did something that I don't think a lot of people do. But something we learned at CD Projekt, which is a good practice, is to write your dialogues straight in English.
Yeah,
basically. And
fair. We unfortunately need to wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so. So anyone in chat with questions, I encourage you to drop them in. I have enough questions that we could go for another hour because I really want to talk about what makes a good stealth game. Like, so much of this game is based around sneaking in a sort of a funny, with the player at an offset camera view. And they can go up and down, so there must be so many concerns about vision cones and timing of AI and how to design levels that are fun but not frustrating. So maybe we could just sum that up in a minute, and I would ask you, what do you think makes a good stealth game and why?
Making idiots out of NPCs.
Okay.
This is the thing I love in every stealth game. It's like, I'm this guy is right next to you and you cannot see me. Bam, stop. This is the pure gold of stealth NPC of stealth games. For me.
Yeah, I agree, and we are still working on some fixes for our stealth system.
That's funny. I would have assumed. Yeah.
If you have extra questions, we can always get around to that, or you can send them over.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks in chat aren't dropping anything in just now, but if they do, we'll try to get them. I think it's fascinating that you would just clearly point out that a good stealth game is about making the player feel superior to the AI. I feel like so many designers focus on making a really competent, skilled AI system, and like something that struck me a couple years ago is that really good AI doesn't need to compete against the player. It needs to kind of like dance with the player. It needs to be a companion rather than an antagonist, because if the player is just being defeated all the time, then like
exactly.
the game is
get frustrated. It's Dark Souls basically once again,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that make a stupid AI. What I'm saying is that the important feeling is to give it to the player that you did it. You cheated the NPC that was trying to catch you or whatever,
Yeah, totally. Brian, you did it.
Stocky Stout would like to know, do you have a favorite stealth game that you drew inspiration from?
Well, we were surely inspired by Thief.
Yeah, I love Thief.
I really do enjoy Dishonored myself, really.
But to be honest, like the best stealth feature, not the best stealth feature, but my favorite stealth feature from my childhood is sneaking up to an unsuspecting merchant in Fallout 2 and just putting a live dynamite in his pocket and running the hell from there.
Well, take everything else out of his pockets first, right? So
exactly. Because
and then leave the dynamite.
Alex is a professional.
I love Fallout 2. The Fallout games were amazing. So I guess Rat Trap has a decent question we can sort of go out on. It's sort of standard, most people will ask at the end of an interview like this, like, are you going to make a 7-2? But rather than that, I just kind of want to dig in, like, what's next for you after you sort of feel like you have done what you need to do in terms of like post-launch support and everything. What do you want to do next? Do you want to do another indie stealth game? Do you want to try something new? What are you excited about?
It's hard to tell right now in terms of IP and games and DLCs and other stuff. But we would definitely want to expand on that concept. We learned a lot during the process, 2.5 years of making this game, and the things that you see right now are just the end product, but we already know what's wrong with it, so we want to expand on it, I think.
Sure.
Cool.
Brian, any last questions that you want to squeeze in?
I hate to.
Where do I go?
I have. You have to go.
No.
Where do I go?
No. I'm doing fine. On that front. I'm just trying to. There we go. Okay, made it back over here. No. I was going to ask one more question, if you don't mind. Take all the time you want to answer this. We aren't in a rush. I have been only. This is a question about making games in Poland, and making games and art in a changing world. I have only been vaguely keeping an eye on global headlines, and I've seen that Poland has been the site of some protests. The protest I saw was a white nationalist protest, but I believe there's been some other civic activity going on. I'm not trying to come out here and say that Poles are suddenly all white nationalists by any extent. No, but I'm just
Right.
Sorry, I'm just asking how, if any of that has the changing culture, and a busy civic life in your country changed the way you think about the world or the way you make games? Has it made you, and especially games about corrupt regimes like the ones we're seeing in here?
Well, if I can answer just this really quickly, the protests, the things that are happening recently in Poland, are a result of changing the guard in the Polish parliament, like the other option winning than was before.
Yeah.
I don't really want to comment on that, but I can comment on the fact that the things that you're seeing, the protests and the other stuff, this all happens in the major cities and mostly in the capital. Like the capital lives with politics.
Yeah.
Poland. We don't really see that much of it anywhere near us, to be honest.
Yeah.
But so that was for me. That was part of the plan to escape from that.
From the protests.
Yeah, from the protests and having to commute in the bus and waiting for them to pass by. It's not that I'm not a politically conscious person. It's just that it grew to an abstract level in Poland, and I'm having a feeling they're not done yet.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think it's interesting to know that that's part of the reason that you wanted to leave the city was to find a better place you can make games in. Yeah. Well, sorry to end on that more depressing note. I apologize. We only get like sort of the American. We only get the it's all filtered through an American lens. So I apologize if I misrepresented anything. But with that, I think it's time to wrap things up. Is there anywhere you mentioned before that like if they want to send questions over, is there anywhere they should be sending them about game development?
They can always write to me at Twitter or to Karolina. Mine Twitter is Talanar777 and Karolina is Karolin
_ PL.
You can find us probably through people who 7Game follows, or we just post it in the chat. Can someone post it in the chat? If any of my friends is watching.
Profile on Twitter for sure.
Yeah.
We will be.
So so that would be the fastest way. Just give us a shout and we're gonna try and answer. And await our patch that will be live in a couple hours.
Cool. Well, congrats on the patch. Congrats on shipping this really cool role-playing game. As for us, you have been watching the Gamasutra Twitch channel. I have been Brian Francis, joined by Alex Waro down there in the corner. We would appreciate it if you clicked the follow button if you haven't already, because if you click that follow button, you'll get more updates when we go live with other game developer interviews. We do some roundtables sometimes. We'll probably have one for our Games of the Year. And just if you click that follow button, you get more insightful conversation about the art and business of making games. As for us, that'll be it. If you're looking for what's next, I think we're talking to the folks at Nereal about Reigns 2 later this week. So if you liked the first game Reigns, you should come back for Reigns 2, Reigns Harder. That's not the name of the game. That was a joke about Die Hard. All right. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
When in doubt, jump.